And now, Paradigm Unhinged with your radio host, Ken Storch and Todd Knurr.
Good evening and welcome to Paradigm Unhinged on the Inception Radio Network. I'm Todd Knurr.
And I'm Ken Storch, and we're going to rock your paradigm.
Tonight we're going to be talking about a favorite of many of our listeners, and that's Mauro Biglino's work. And we're going to just great information in here about how we've been lied to. Anyway, don't forget to visit our website, ParadigmUnhinged.com. Follow us on Twitter and friend us on Facebook. And if you have any questions or comments, you can call into the studio at 1-888-919-2355. Or you can log into the Inception Radio Network chat room, type in my name, followed by your question in all caps. There's also free Android and iPhone apps available. Inception Radio Network has made those available for you at the appropriate app stores. And if all else fails, you have no high tech, you can call in to listen on a landline. And there's two numbers for that. The first one is 1-832-280-0830. And the second one is 1-786-837-2262. And if you missed a show or you want to check out some of our past shows, just go to ParadigmUnhinged.com, and at the top of the page you'll see a link to show archives. Follow the link and you can download any or all of our past shows. Tonight we're going to talk about Mauro Biglino, a former Vatican linguist who was he
translating.
It's a direct translation, and that should be noted. I was engaged in a chat room with one of our listeners, and the word interpretation came up, and it's certainly Mauro Biglino's work is not interpretation. There's no personal driving factor behind what he finds. He takes the literal words and puts them out there for you, as we're going to talk about here in just a little bit.
Hey, Todd, can I add something real quick?
Yeah, that's why I was going to toss it to you.
Oh, well, I just wanted to say that I think it's important to know, at least in the ufology field, Mauro Biglino was unheard of. If you were to ask somebody in the MUFON or any other UFO organizations, his name was not mentioned. I don't think people knew about him. And more importantly, he didn't have a dog in that fight. He really didn't. If you read and listen to one of his lectures, he says, I didn't know anything about flying saucers or UFOs. I'm simply translating. That's what I was hired to do, and this is what it says. You make of it what you wish. And I think that's important. I think he's a very honest translator. I think he puts it out there for the entire world to see. And
you know why he gets such pushback from the church and those that follow Christianity is because what he says is what he has found is exactly what you basically have is a history lesson,
right? That
was converted into a controlling religion that allowed the few to control the many.
And it wasn't just one religion. Look that story, like you say, all the major religions have pretty much the same story, Todd.
Yep.
And so you're absolutely correct. It's actually a history of our species. And I think it answers who we are. If you follow his work, Biglino's work, it answers. And that's one of the big questions that anthropologists and sociologists and psychiatrists have all asked, exactly what are we, and this is a part of our history. It's like an adopted child learning of its natural mother.
Well, yeah, and for me, it was a confirmation, because I've always, after as most of our audience, those listeners that have followed us for a while, they know I was brought up in a very religious family, and I started asking uncomfortable questions of the church when I was in catechism.
And one of the reasons why I'm divorced is because I questioned the Lutheran faith. I was baptized Lutheran,
as was I, Wisconsin Synod.
Yeah, Missouri, and
well, some of the Missouri Synod is considered so liberal by the what's now called the Wisconsin Evangelical Synod.
Right.
Folks that are confirmed Lutherans in the Missouri Synod are not allowed to take communion in a Wisconsin evangelical church.
Right.
And it's because they're too liberal.
and so,
isn't that amazing?
I know. But when it just became, issues, questions that didn't make sense. Having grown up on a farm, I knew how fertilization took place, okay? And one of the questions is, how could the Virgin Mary be a virgin and still be pregnant?
My first question was, what's this part about sons of God coming down and having sex with earth women? Yeah. I thought God only had one son, and he didn't show up till way later.
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh, but you're right. Yeah, those are that got me in trouble, asking those kinds of questions. Sure did.
Yep.
And the more I read about Biglino's work, the more it makes sense.
Absolutely.
I've said this a number of times. It really fits, and I can follow it, and I believe it to be true. The Anunnaki, the Sumerians. How religion, I believe, was used to control, and that very few, the nobles, if you will, knew the truth. And to this day, I think there's probably some hardcore physical evidence in the vaults down in the Vatican.
No, and absolutely, and that's the Vatican's known for keeping information.
Yeah, and we explored that when we talked about the Nazis and how the Catholic Church and the Vatican smuggled out a bunch of Nazis, a bunch of high-ranking Nazi officials. Asked Werner von Braun, who was, basically our birth of NASA. But the Vatican was involved in that, in those kinds of secrets. So, yeah. I'm one of those that think that down in the catacombs in the caves under the Vatican that there's some real interesting evidence.
Well, let's start now. And a lot of our listeners that have been with us almost from the beginning will know, because we've talked about Mauro Biglino and his work almost from our first show. And for those who don't know, and for those who do, a little refresher on who is Mauro Biglino. And Mauro Biglino is an Italian scholar of history and religion. He worked for 10 years for the main publishing house of the Vatican as a translator of ancient Hebrew from the original Masoretic text of the Bible. And I'm sure a lot of folks have never heard the term or the Masoretic text. And I'll be describing that in a little bit. And he had translated the first 17 books of the Old Testament from the ancient Hebrew text, which is the Masoretic text and the Leningrad Codex, which this is the text of reference, Okay, folks, and that's what's critical here. It's the text of reference of the Old Testament for the Roman Catholic Church, the Christian Protestant churches, and for the Torah of the Jewish religion. What he did was he went to the oldest, most direct manuscripts that were available to the church, and that's the Leningrad Codex. And that's where the Mauro Biglino story got interesting, because when he started the translation, he began to see what was there before the church. Well, I shouldn't say the church, but because the Masoretic text was that was written by a sect of Judaism back. And that was written between 6 and 900 A.D. The Masoretic text. The Masoretes were like a sect within Judaism, and at the time there were several schools of thought. There was the Masoretes. They were in, I believe, the Lebanon school. There was the Babylonian school, and there was the Egyptian school, to name a few. And all of these you could consider like they had a little different take on the history than each other. It's kind of like the different denominations of Christianity, if you will. It's kind of a broad way to explain it, but I suppose it's the easiest way for folks to understand that. But the Masoretes were the ones, the scribes, the guardians of the tradition, the Masorah, who devoted their lives and their work to write down the text of the Bible. And so they are the ones who were chosen to write this. It's no different than, let's say, the Baptists got in charge to write, the official text for the church. That's the Masoretic text was written by folks who had a philosophical bent different from others. And I don't know how they were chosen to be the ones to write the codex, but they were. And that's the document that Mauro Biglino began his work with.
And I think it's interesting to point out to our listeners that the Vatican is not upset or pushing back on him for what he translated.
Well, they fired him.
Yeah, and it wasn't because he was mistranslated.
That's a little pushback, though.
That's well, and
but you make a point there, Ken, and that's what our listeners have to understand is
right.
that he had already done 17 of the first 17 of the Old Testament books. He had produced books for the Vatican that were published based on his
translations.
Right. And then about the time that he came public with what he was finding is about the time the Vatican said, we're going to let you go. And yeah, go ahead, Ken. I know what you're going to bring up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it was shortly thereafter, and Todd and I have confirmed this, that the Vatican came out. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen? It's okay to believe in E.T.
Right. They came out in about 2009.
Right. And they and there is no doubt that they were trying to get ahead of what Mauro Biglino's work was going to establish, since he was going public with it. And I tell you what, that's a pretty courageous guy, Todd. At some point in time, I would like to shake his hand, because I think it took a lot of intestinal fortitude, realizing And once again, the church doesn't deny that what he's saying is correct. There's been a number of other translators that has verified that his work, right, Todd? I mean, he even went and sought advice from some of the Orthodox Jew to make sure that he was, he was interpreting it right, and they confirmed.
Well, yeah, they had published all of his work, so not only did he do the work, but the Vatican approved of it, and they
signed off on it.
That's right.
They signed off on it. That's exactly what they did.
And once he got a little too close to finding out what really was behind the Bible, they said, "Yeah, well, you're doing too good a job." I know about getting fired for doing too good a job.
Right. Yeah, I fully understand. And it's go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, and that's the reason why we bring that up is because it also validates his work. The fact that he got fired, not because he was sloppy work or he was mistranslating or any of that, but because he had learned a lot of stuff that he felt other people should know. And I'm glad he did.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad he did. I don't know. This is going to snowball. I really believe that because it's the truth.
Well, when again, just like when in police work, when you're investigating something, a crime or a suspected crime, an alleged crime, you go back as far as you can to the original source of the information, and
correct.
That's what Mauro Biglino did.
Correct.
At the request of the church.
Right, I know that, and that's the irony of it, I guess, is that because this is something that the hierarchy within the Catholic Church initiated, and I for one don't think that they anticipated going down this path. Maybe they did. I don't know. I certainly wasn't there in the round room when they decided to hire Biglino and have this done.
No, absolutely, and clearly, he had, because they had published quite a bit of his work, so they were happy with him.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. They signed off on it, so it was already out there, and so I mean, that basically they agreed with his work. It wasn't until he started giving talks and lectures and putting it out there that things went south for him. In regards to his relationship with the Vatican. Right.
And the timing of him being let go and Father Balducci or Monsignor, I don't know his title. Monsignor Balducci, mentioning, as one of our listeners did, Balducci was not actually the first Vatican priest. There was one a couple of years before him that never really got a lot of traction, but he mentioned it.
Yeah, that's true.
And I found in a discussion in Facebook with one of our listeners that follows us on Facebook, and that, folks, that's another reason to friend us on Facebook, because we have some pretty good conversations, and there's information I post there that you won't get unless you go to Facebook and friend us. But there was a discussion of what the word world meant in the Bible. And, you and I, and 99.9% of our listeners, when they hear the word world, it means the planet Earth.
Yeah, that's what I envision.
Right. But if you go to this again, people, you go to the source. When I was baptized, I was given a very comprehensive Bible. It is called the Golden Book edition of the King James Version of the Bible. And in it is a extremely comprehensive biblical dictionary, far more comprehensive than any Bible I've ever seen, not of this size. And in it, it clearly says world. You look up world and it means universe, all of God's creation. So that's back in the day, okay, back when the Bible, in biblical history, back during those days, when somebody was referring to the world, they meant
Universe.
all of God's creation, universe.
The stars, everything they saw.
Now, if they're talking about the universe a couple thousand years ago, that implies a knowledge more than, because the word world is also used in reference to all of God's creations in the world. Okay, that's, I believe, is the phrase, and that's an acknowledgement
that there's
of other life in the universe.
Right.
But again, you bring that up at church, and well, nowadays it's become more mainstream. At least it has with the Catholic Church, because they've acknowledged, hey, if ET's here, we can preach to them too.
Right. Yeah. And that brings us right back to Biglino, because you're right. There was another Catholic priest that it was mentioned, but it didn't get a lot of traction. It kind of just it was flying out there, and then it just disappeared. It wasn't the big CNN news break when the Vatican said, "Hey, it's okay to believe in ET." It came after Biglino was fired. So my opinion is that they were trying to get ahead of that curveball, that because they knew it was coming.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in modern parlance, it's getting ahead of the story.
Right. That way you can control it, or hope to control it. And I really urge our listeners to get his book and read it, because
well, it's not available yet in English.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
Well,
no. The copy that he gave us is simply for us, and it's not. They haven't found a publishing house here in America yet. That's what they're working on.
I wonder if there's
folks, and if to kind of go along with what we've said here, the working title of the book is "There Is No God in the Bible: The Book That Makes the Vatican Tremble."
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the Masoretic texts that Mauro Biglino used. He in this book he references modern scientific discoveries, including DNA technology.
Right.
Archaeological findings, the Sumerian tablets, which is the oldest known culture to have been on Earth, and I'm going to address that in a little bit. He also used official documents of the Vatican, studies and commentaries written by theologians, exegetes, and church fathers. He used the Septuagint version of the Bible, which is the Greek version, which was dated approximately 250 to 120 before Common Era, and
wow.
and extra biblical texts, or sometimes known as the Apocrypha, because folks, there's a lot of books that they don't put in the Bible. There's make it, and when you read some of these texts that were around at the same time as the other texts that were used, you can see why they didn't use it, because it doesn't talk about a controlling church.
Control.
It's a completely different paradigm. And, of course, you can't have that if you're trying to establish a paradigm that allows the few to control the many, which is what religions are.
Bingo. That's exactly right.
And it's like the Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, all of these things. The Book of Enoch, by the way, the Coptic Church, the Book of Enoch's in the Coptic Church Bible, but it's not in the Catholic or the Christian Bible.
Why weren't we taught about the Sumerian culture when we were in school, Todd?
Well, there's probably too many, again, just like the questions I asked during catechism, there's too many uncomfortable questions.
Right.
And there's something else that the listeners need to know, too, is in the ancient Hebrew language, it had just consonants and no vowels.
Yeah, I didn't know that. You're right.
Right. And the Masoretes integrated the vowels and punctuation marks. They defined the spelling and the pronunciation. Okay. Nobody knows how the text was pronounced when it was originally written down. And then the Masoretes organized the text into books, sections, paragraphs, verses, and intervened on the texts to definitively establish the canon. And what that means, folks, is that by putting in the consonants and punctuations, they set context.
That's right.
They
defined.
They defined what was going to be official doctrine.
Correct.
Not God. A group of Jewish scribes called the Masoretes decided what it was going to be. And then here we are.
And that is the correct, I think, assessment. And the important word there is control. That was done to control the masses.
Correct.
And it was,
that's what I believe anyway.
Oh, I think after you read and ask the questions, the answers are there. You have to go looking for them. But I think
that's true, Ken, and that's true about so much in life. Is you have to work. You have to put a little effort in. You have to look. If you just want to be fed pablum and believe what you're told, then turn on CNN.
Soylent Green, step
or
up to
Fox
the food
News,
shops.
or any of them.
Right.
And certainly your church, your local church, regardless of your denomination,
right,
isn't going to tell you about this.
Well, I think it becomes a threat. And, and I'm just going to throw this out there, but one of the things that I was told, the 2012, December 21st, 2012 apocalypse from the Mayans. And that's not what the Mayans said, Todd. It was an awakening, a new, it was like a new flower, a new life or whatever. It was an awakening. The old one was gone and an awakening. And for this to come out, for this information to be out there, for us to be talking about it, for us to be exposing it to the internet for crying and going around the world, the title of the book says it all.
Yeah, it does. And knowing, talking with Mauro as we've done, and folks, for our new listeners, go back to our archives because we've had Mauro on the show several times. The most recent show, though, with Jim Mars is by far the best one because he had an absolute first-rate translator with him.
Correct. Yeah, I enjoy listening to that show, and I think our listeners would too. That's a good one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it is. It's about control. And boy, Todd, I tell you, it certainly sent some ripples through, I bet you, the Vatican.
Yeah, I'm sure. We're at the bottom of the hour here, folks. We're going to pick up with what's going on at the Vatican and regarding this info. After the break, got to take a pause for the cause. Stick around, folks. This is Paradigm Unhinged on the Inception Radio Network.
You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Hello guys, Jamie Havocan here for Paradigm Unhinged, hosted by Ken Storch and Todd Knurr, live on IRN every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, going live, bringing you topics in the paranormal realm and beyond. That's Paradigm Unhinged with Ken Storch, Todd Knurr, Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. right here on Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty landline or cell phone and dial our call and listen lines at 832-280-0830 or 786-837-2262 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, those numbers are 832-280-0830 or 786-837-2262. For the Inception Radio Network, I'm MJ.
You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
Hi, Bob Tarmac for MJ'sHealthyWay.com. Are you into vitamins, nutrition, meal replacements, health shakes, keeping your body in good shape, your internal engine going? Boy, do I have a perfect place for you. MJ'sHealthyWay.com. They offer the best service and products, and they'll tell you anything you need to know about any product they have to offer. I get all my vitamins, meal replacements, shakes from MJ'sHealthyWay.com. That's spelled MJSHealthyWay.com. There's so much more at the website. Go check it out. MJ'sHealthyWay.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best.
Welcome back to Paradigm Unhinged on the Inception Radio Network. Don't forget, folks, go to our website, paradigmunhinged.com. I also link some interesting and often pertinent news articles on the website, and so you'll find more than just our show there. Also, follow us on Twitter and friend us on Facebook. Call in your questions and comments to 1-888-919-2355. Or you can send a question to me in the Inception Radio Network chat room. Just log into chat, type in my name, and put in your question in all caps, and I'll try and get that read on the air. Inception Radio Network has free Android and iPhone apps available. Just go to the appropriate app store. And you can also call in to listen. If you have no computer, no smartphone, dial in on a regular landline. And there's two numbers for that. And the first one is 1-832-280-0830 and 1-786-837-2262. And where we left off, we were talking about the Vatican, and I just kind of, here's a little something, Ken, and I think you'll probably enjoy this. As much as Mauro Biglino and his work is known at the Vatican and what he is doing, and see, folks, in Italy, Mauro's a big deal. He holds seminars. In fact, on our website, I've got a link to one of his seminars. Of course, it's in Italian with English subtitles. So he's made quite a splash over there. So the Vatican knows of Mauro Biglino, and Ken and I at Paradigm Unhinged are Mauro's first entry into North America. He made the first radio show he ever did was on our show.
Right. Yeah. I'm honored to have him on there too.
Oh, absolutely. And the Vatican's got to have heard by now of Paradigm Unhinged.
Not just the Vatican, Todd. I think there's some other entities out there that heard about us, but that's a whole
other
topic.
We're talking the Vatican tonight.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But anyway, back to the Masoretes and their construction, okay, if you will. They constructed the Bible as we know it today. And what Mauro Biglino did was went and he went back to the original text and just worked with the original consonants that were indicated before the Masoretes included the vowels. And it's amazing. My favorite, of course, as it was when I was young, was the whole creation story. And everybody knows the phrase, and God made man in his own
image.
Right, which that is Genesis 1:26. And it doesn't really read quite that way.
Imagine that.
Original text. But they don't completely rewrite it. They just tweak it.
Yeah,
so that the anything that might cause you to question it or say, what does this mean, is not there. And in Genesis, if you translate the original Hebrew into English, and for a lot of the folks who don't understand Hebrew, they have their consonants and vowels in different orders than English language does. And in fact, anybody who's listened to Star Wars knows roughly what the Hebrew language, how it is spoken, and that's when Yoda speaks, and he kind of has things backwards, and everybody thinks that's kind of cute. Well, that's how the Hebrew language is. Crazy it is, I think. That's how that's how it would be spoken, instead of I think it is crazy. Crazy it is, I think.
Right. Right.
And they put the nouns in different positions than we do in sentences. And so that construct, changing it over to English, there were some changes, as well as changing the word in our own image. That's the only reference it's made. It says, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Okay, that's the quote in the Bible. I just read it from the book in the Bible in my hand.
And it says, let us.
Right, and we're going to get to that. And now in the original, if you were to convert the original into English, it would go, and said Elohim, let us make man with Salma of us, as likeness our. Okay, now to put that in the way we arrange words, and the Elohim said, let us make man with Tselem of us as our likeness. And the word that was left out was Tselem, and it's spelled Tselem.
How convenient.
Well, again,
right. Yeah.
Instead of with Tselem of us as our likeness, it's make man in our image after our likeness. And Tselem and after aren't even close to the same word as we're going to see here.
I know. Folks
but it makes such a huge difference, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does.
And Tselem, it's like a part of something. Okay.
DNA. I don't know.
There you go. That's it. The DNA. But the author of Genesis wants to tell us that the Elohim, and folks, Elohim is generally considered plural of gods. In fact, if you look in a proper biblical dictionary, Elohim if you look up Elohim, it refers to a plurality of God, multiple gods, and right. Sometimes it's used to describe the old gods before Yahweh. Okay, which is another, we could do a whole show on just Yahweh.
Yeah.
But the Tselem, with Tselem of Elohim made him. Okay, with part of them, they made them male and female. Elohim is a Semitic plural term used to describe the Lord's plural from above. Okay, right. Where have we heard the Lord's from above in a similar phrase, Ken? How about the Anunnaki? Okay,
yeah.
Anunnaki, the gods who from the heavens came.
Correct.
Again, another a connection between the Old Testament and the Sumerian writing.
And, for those listeners, it also validates the same questions that Von Daniken asked in Chariots of the Sky or Chariots of Fire, or whatever it was.
Chariots of the Gods.
Chariots of the Gods, yeah. I read that book, and some of the same questions that he raised, I was asking also. And when you read about the Sumerians and the Anunnaki, and God damn it fits. I'm sorry, it does. I'm 100% convinced of that.
Well, in the Bible, you'll find a word that refers to a people, an ancient and old people that were old at the time of the characters in the Bible, and you'll find that in the Bible is the Anakim.
The Anakim, right.
The long-necked ones.
Yeah.
They were also connected to the giants. Okay? The giants that were created when the sons of God came down and had sex with earth women.
Oh, hey, we see that in the story.
Earth women are easy.
And we know giants existed because David slew Goliath, and that actually happened.
Right. And
Goliath was a giant.
Else that they don't. That's part of that forbidden archaeology, because there's giants all over. They found remains of giants all over, but they don't talk about it because it goes against the paradigm of control that they have established upon everyone.
Todd, there is the Cahokia Mounds in Cahokia, Illinois, and we went there in the school as a field trip. And I remember very distinctly that they estimated that some of the skeletons inside through X-rays, because they had X-ray, they didn't dig in there. Some of those skeletons are like 7 to 8 feet tall. Well, there was no North American Indian that we know of, or any tribe that had that kind of height. And that's
absolutely. And yeah, the Native Americans, they have stories of the giants, but that's how they changed, just by tweaking that. This is just one verse, folks, that we're talking about, and understand the entire Old Testament has been written the method that we've described, how they added the vowels and punctuation to create context. And it's not just a sentence here, a sentence there. It's an entire, I don't want to say fabrication, but it's a complete rewriting. And even not a complete rewriting. It's just the context. They take the context away of man, just like the Sumerians interacting with the Anunnaki. They always referred to them as those that came from above. They didn't call them gods.
Right. In fact, weren't they told not to worship them at all? Weren't they?
Well, according to some of the writings that have been interpreted that I've seen, yes. And then we have what is by logic when you read what Selim means. It denotes not only something concrete and material. Okay, Selim doesn't mean like a painting or a picture. It's something solid. It's something in and of itself. It's a part of something.
Right.
And in the original meaning of the Semitic root word, it's the concept of being cut off from. Now, what would you cut off from to make a man? Can you answer that, Ken? DNA.
What I was thinking is that it is definitely describing a surgical procedure removing cells, DNA, and transplanting them. Yeah. Damn it, I know in my heart, Todd, that's what happened. That's the truth. It is the truth.
And you know, something interesting, as far as academia goes, you know, basically the Sumerians are the oldest culture that they acknowledge as a actual society, which the Sumerians were. And under most interpretations, it's seen as they just, you know, there was this culture that was thriving, and they had, you know, science, math, astronomy, astrology. Those were separate disciplines, and they had them both. That, according to the Sumerians themselves, they got that information from the Anunnaki.
Naki, right.
Okay. Or the Anakim of the Bible. And folks, just look up the word Anakim, and you'll see that where it's at in the Bible, and what they're describing is another culture. But what I'm getting at is there's no indication of where this culture supposedly started from. They know it goes back to about 4,000 before Common Era, so, you know, roughly 6,000 years ago.
Right.
Okay, but and there's nothing to show what was before them. How did this occur? And I believe that, as we talked about in the show with Mauro Biglino and Jim Mars, all those libraries that were burned,
right?
Alexandria, to name the biggest one, and there were several other large historical libraries in the Middle East area, what we call the Middle East now.
They were eradicated.
These libraries were burned to the ground. So who knows how far back the knowledge of this went?
Right. We don't.
Yeah, we don't. And you have the Anunnaki, and it follows right through all the Sumerians. Then came the Mesopotamians, the Babylonians. They all followed from the Anunnaki. If you look at the deities in these civilizations that came after the Sumerians, like all religions, they take a little bit from what the religion before them was and blend their own. In fact, I was in a discussion in the chat room earlier about, you know, Islam. Somebody was saying Islam's just like Christianity, just different names, and it's not even close. But what Islam did was they took some of the names and events from that were told in the Bible, and they put it in their book and angled it in their direction. It's okay to believe in Jesus if you're a Muslim, because Jesus is mentioned as a prophet in
as a
Quran.
Right, in the Quran, he's a prophet.
And Abraham is mentioned. In Abraham is the father. It's the Abrahamic traditions, which is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They all trace back to Abraham as the progenitor of those religions. It all started with Abraham, and Abraham was from the city of Ur in, drum roll please, Samaria.
Oh, geez, say it's not so.
Abraham was a Sumerian.
Oh, man.
So, and he existed about the time that the Sumerian civilization began to go away, and other civilizations came out of it.
Right.
And so did three religions, because of this one man who we're still talking about today.
Correct.
And Abraham was about 1800 BC. So we're still talking about him nearly 6,000 years later.
Wow. You could definitely say he was a player.
Well, he was in direct contact with the Anunnaki.
Yeah, I know. He was.
I'm sorry. He was in direct contact with God.
Right. And that's how it was interpreted. That's how it was sold, that he was in direct contact with God. And yeah. Well, and see, that fits, Todd. I mean, that makes sense.
Well, no, and Lisa in our chat room has a question here that fits right into what we're talking about here, and that is, what about some of the pre-Sumerian stuff that's coming to light? Gobli Tepe, Marcoesi in South America. I think that should be South Africa. Marcoesi is in South Africa. But yeah, absolutely. It's like the Hindu religion and the Lord Krishna, the blue-skinned god from the stars. Okay, that's who Krishna was. He had a city from which he ruled, but they never found the city, so it was a myth. The Krishna thing was a myth. He didn't exist. There was no blue-skinned guy that controlled everything. But yet, a couple years ago, in about 100 foot of water off the coast of northwest India, they discovered Krishna's city. Now, if they discovered the city that they said didn't exist, then the god from outer space, who they say doesn't exist, existed.
And here's another one. We now know that the Anunnaki wanted and liked gold. And in South Africa, some of these gold mines, these gold pits are down, 2 miles, and they're finding evidence of mining operations. And you're not being told about it.
100,000 years ago.
Exactly. They're saying some of these mining operations are estimated between 100 to 150,000 years ago. Wait a minute. Something's not right here.
Yeah, man was still a monkey back then, according to basically.
Thank you. And wasn't part of the story, if you will, was that they wanted to. That's the reason why they weren't supposed to mate with the Sumerians, right, Todd? It was that all they wanted to do was make a creature, if you will, capable of operating the machinery in the gold mines. They didn't want a whole lot of intelligence, apparently. And that's the reason why it got out of hand. I mean, I know I'm simplifying it, but they being the Anunnaki, started interacting sexually with the human female.
Right.
I don't want to blame the ladies, but is it essentially?
But I mean, come on, a god wanting to have sex with you? Hell, I'd have sex with them.
Well, you know what? Really, I wonder if we could. No, you couldn't do that. But you're right. You're absolutely correct. Oh my gosh, Yahweh wants to crawl in the sack with me. Yeah, well, not me, but if I was a female, right. and so
female deity,
right. But back to those mines archaeologists and anthropologists are finding that hey, they get down there and all of a sudden they find another shaft that was drilled, and they're 2 miles below the crust. How did that get there?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that's that uncomfortable. And I acknowledge, that's science. Science, it's like the scientists are from Missouri. Show me. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
In a nutshell,
Right.
scientific theory breaks down to prove it.
Yeah,
Okay,
bingo.
and so they simply cannot, because of their paradigm, accept anything that can't be either replicated or verified.
Right.
And so anything before the Sumerians didn't exist. Oops, we got Göbekli Tepe, which is, they're figuring now 12,000 years old.
Wow.
Okay. They found Krishna's city, the mines in South Africa, the structures west of Cuba in a mile of water.
Well, and they're also finding, I mean, I know it's not, a lot of scientists are saying, no, it's not true. But I watched the National Geographic when they dove off the coast of Japan. And that professor, Japanese professor, he's got a good case. He's got a good argument.
And it goes back to, there's more history than one that we're told.
Oh, much.
And two, as the Bible makes clear, okay, if you look at it the way that a trained, educated linguist looks at it, okay, that this whole history is different from what we've been told, and there's and I found this fascinating. I can't find anything on it other than just reference that it may have that it supposedly existed. And that's another one of the missing Old Testament books, if you will, is the War Book of Yahweh.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and it's referenced in writings, but no one's ever presented a copy of it.
Wow. Well, you're right. There is so much about and see, Todd, that goes back to my earlier comment that I think that a lot of information, a lot of proof of who and what we are and what we're talking about tonight are in the catacombs down below the Vatican. There's a lot of information, even in their library. Not just anybody can go in there. I mean, it's a very controlled environment, and I don't even know if the Pope is allowed down into the catacombs, Todd. I don't know. Probably too old to go down there, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
who knows? But yeah, you're right. And some of now what we're seeing with Mauro Biglino's work, some of what they're concealing is the true history, the true biblical history, because
right,
there's a reference in one of the books. It escapes me which book it is. I promise I'll get that information and I'll put it on our Facebook page. It refers to one of the battles that David is in. This is after he killed, and he's leading the nation, the Israelites at this point, and he's in a battle with one of Yahweh's enemies. Okay, and he is talking to Yahweh directly through a device that is on the back of one of his soldiers. And the way it's described, it sounds exactly like a portable radio with a handheld mic, just like you'd see in the old World War II movies.
Right.
Calling in an airstrike or whatever. and that's what he's doing. He's calling Yahweh in the middle of a battle for help.
Yeah.
Oh, we're at the top of the hour. Pause for the cause, folks. Stick around. We'll be back with the final segment of Paradigm Unhinged on the Inception Radio Network.
You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Hello guys, Jamie Havocan here for Paradigm Unhinged, hosted by Ken Storch and Todd Knurr, live on IRN every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, going live, bringing you topics in the paranormal realm and beyond. That's Paradigm Unhinged with Ken Storch, Todd Knurr, Wednesday nights, 9 p.m., right here on Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty landline or cell phone and dial our call and listen lines at 832-280-0830 or 786-837-2262 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, those numbers are 832-280-0830 or 786-837-2262. For the Inception Radio Network, I'm MJ.
Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Just a reminder that Inception Radio Network is on Twitter. Follow us at I_R_N and keep up to date about who's on tonight, what interviews they'll be doing, who's guest spotting, what topics they'll be covering. Tweet to us, tweet about us, retweet topics to your friends, and most importantly, never miss a great show again. That's I_R_N.
Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there. Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best.
Welcome back, folks, to the final segment of tonight's Paradigm Unhinged on the Inception Radio Network. Don't forget to go to our website, ParadigmUnhinged.com. Follow us on Twitter and friend us on Facebook. Call in with questions or comments to 1-888-919-2355. Or you can send me a question or comment in the Inception Radio Network chat room. Just log into chat, type my name, followed by your question in all caps. And the Inception Radio Network has also provided free Android and iPhone apps available at the appropriate app stores. And you can call in to listen. There's 2 landlines for that. There's 1-832-280-0830 and 1-786-837-2262. And you can always go to our show archive section and download any of our past shows. Just go to Paradigm Unhinged. At the top of the page, you'll see a link to show archives. and you can download any or all of our past shows. And Ken, were we talking about I kind of lost it there. What were you talking about?
That's okay. I have a question that was sent to me on my phone from Ricky. I don't know if that's a male or female, from Shodo, Oklahoma.
Chowto.
Shodo. Chowto. And that is, he or she wants to know, do you or Todd believe in God? So, Todd, you want to make your first answer, and then I'll answer.
And the easiest way is no, I do not believe in a invisible sky-dwelling super being that takes attendance on Sunday and grants wishes or denies wishes based upon his mood of the day or whether you're good or bad.
Yeah, because, folks, I don't think that there's an omnipotent being either that keeps score. You know, it takes 10 attaboys to get rid of one shit. And if that's the case, then I'm in the hole by about a couple of hundred. But I do believe that, for me, I do believe there's an energy that permeates the universe. I think George Lucas in the Star Wars trilogy came the closest. When, the force be with you. It was both positive and negative. And I quote Einstein. He thought the most powerful force in the universe was the human mind. If you could dream it, you could make it and create it. And so I believe that faith, people believe in things. I believe that they can tap in at some point in time. I believe that there is a possibility of tapping into that positive or negative energy. And doing things. And that's my idea of, if you were to ask me of God, then that's how I define God. I don't think it's a being by any stretch of the imagination. It's an energy to me. But hey, faith could move mountains. Haven't you heard that, Todd?
Yeah. Yes, just keep believing that, Ken, and that mountain will move. Send me a video.
Yeah, well, you get enough ICBMs in there, it'll go away. But anyway, so Ricky, that's in a nutshell. And Todd and I've had conversations along this line for a long time. And back to Biglino's work, though, for me, it answers a number of questions for me personally. And I think that that if people will challenge their paradigms, and that's a hard thing to do, because religion, and once again, Todd, hey, religion is not all bad. Okay, you can see what's going on down in Moore, Oklahoma, and the churches that are down there helping people.
Oh no, absolutely. And I know I come off very at the easiest, softest way to say is sarcastic towards religion. Some would say blasphemous, but no, that there's many good things organized religion does well, and charity and helping others is one of them. Right.
And compassion for your fellow man. I mean, you got to give it to the the churches and stuff, especially when a catastrophe. I broadcast, folks. I'm in Tornado Alley in Northeast Oklahoma. Okay, I was in the bullseye for a couple of days, so my nerves are a little rattled, but I enjoyed it, every minute of it. I feel for those people down in Moore, Oklahoma. But what the point that I'm making is that a lot of the local churches, I mean, before the debris settled, Todd, they were on their way down there in their church vans and stuff. So, my hat's off to
absolutely, and you're right.
So, I don't want people to think that I'm against religion. What I'm against is, why'd you lie to me?
Some religion.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, I don't want to. But why?
A little religion's okay. Too much religion, you get like what happened today in England when a Muslim chopped a soldier's head off in the middle of the freaking street.
And stood there and taught and explained why he did it. And I think
because his God told him to.
Right. Right. Yeah. And there's the dark side of the energy, ladies and gentlemen, because you tap into that dark. That's evil. I don't give a shit what, pardon my French, I don't give a damn what religion and what Allah Akbar or Jesus H. Christ told me to do it. That's an evil thing to do to another human being. Because your religion, I got a problem with that. I hope everybody else does too, except those that, listen to the propaganda. And that's the problem I have, is don't lie to me. Just tell me the truth. And, you can't handle the truth. Oh, yes, I can. Well, and I think Biglino is doing just that.
And here's another example that we'll have to give from Mauro's work here. I got a comment, if you will, by one of our listeners, Redshift, and that's the 10 Commandments aren't too bad, and that's true. Those commandments that we know, in the book, as they're written, they're it's basically a good way to have a society. But what's interesting is the words. They aren't. Most of the commandments that we know really aren't originally written the way we know them. For example, thou shalt not kill. That's not the action. Again, they changed one word. The word kill is not what was written. The word murder is what was written. There's a big difference, as any cop will tell you, between killing and murder. You kill somebody in defense of yourself or others, that's not murder. But if you do that according to the Bible, you've sinned, and now you got to make up for it.
Well, it justifies armies. The purpose of an army is to kill.
And it just, again, you tweak one word, and it changes the whole context of the sentence. And that's what they did. Instead of thou shalt not murder.
Yeah.
No, let's make them feel guilty. Thou shalt not kill.
Yeah. And I'm glad that that was brought up. Who brought that up? The commandments?
That was Redshift, who's a listener of ours in the UK.
Good job.
He's staying up way late tonight to listen to us. Thanks, Redshift.
Yeah, but he makes a good point, and thanks for bringing that to light, because there's a classic example of changing a word, and you change the entire meaning.
Folks, I just can't wait for Mauro to get this book in English, because it is mind-blowing, folks.
It is. And I hope that, that our listeners will take the time to read it, because as I said at the beginning of the show, it'll rock your paradigm.
And trust me, as soon as it's available in English, or as soon as they've inked a deal, you folks will be the first to hear about it, because we'll be the first to hear about it, and we'll pass that right on to you.
There you go. But and it makes me wonder, that was, you change the meaning of a word like that. That's intentional, and it goes back to what you said earlier, Todd. It's all about control, and living by the 10 Commandments. Yeah, that's a good way to run a society. And if everybody followed those, the golden rules, if you will, then cops and armies would be out of a job. But that's not what it said. When thou shalt not kill. You're right. There's a big 180 degrees. In one instance, they'll put a medal around your neck for killing, but in the other instance, they'll hang you on the gallows for murder.
Oh, that was funny. Dwayne, who's in chat, mentioned that in reference to Mauro's book. I'm going to put the book in all the hotels I stay in. That's great. That's awesome.
Oh, you got to have a good chuckle over that one. That's a good one. Excellent. Way to go, Dwayne.
But all of this, the Ezekiel and the contact Ezekiel had.
Well, that's one of the stories, the book of Ezekiel, that got me in trouble, and ultimately, the lady that I was married to couldn't handle it, because I confronted the Lutheran minister on just that. That sounds like a flying saucer to me. That sounds something like, outside of our atmosphere coming in and making contact. And
well, that's precise. I'm sorry, Ken. Go ahead.
Oh no, and for hardcore Lutherans, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Absolutely, for hardcore any belief system.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't just. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And the Book of Enoch, and if any of our listeners, and that's part of the Apocrypha. Okay, it's not in the Bible. Okay, but it exists.
Yeah.
I strongly urge our listeners. You can find it on the web and download it. Read the Book of Enoch. It's a short read, but it talks about Enoch being picked up in a ship, taken into space to meet with the head haunches, who then instructed his underlings to teach Enoch mathematics, science, astronomy. And then after his instructions, they brought him back to Earth. Now, I can see why the church wouldn't want that in the Bible.
Yeah, I think that would be a problem for control. And hey, just so you know, I know our listeners probably know this, but at one time, it was a death sentence for a noble to teach a peasant how to read and write. And that was
absolutely. And
that's
the
Church of England.
No, that was before the Church of England existed.
Oh, was it really?
That's the Catholic Church, and what really upset the Catholic Church was the invention of the first printing press, the Gutenberg press.
Right, you're right. Yep.
And you've heard of the Gutenberg Bible, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's the first mechanically printed Bible, because up till then they had to be hand scribed.
Right.
And they really didn't want the masses to be able to, because that's why they had everything in Latin, and they didn't teach people, because then they could say whatever they wanted and nobody could contradict them.
Right. If they went to their ministers or priests or whatever and asked a question, then they could be told basically anything.
Which is, what you have here. And by the way, any of the folks that we may have upset tonight that do have Christian faith, if you go to church on Sunday, you are violating the original commandment on remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, because regardless of what any Christian church says, the Sabbath is sundown Friday till sundown Saturday. Okay. That's the law. Okay. And the Sunday thing was done by a Roman emperor to further the Rome's political ideals.
Because he wanted to party on Friday and Saturday nights.
Just remember, Sunday isn't the holy day. It's sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, and if you don't go to church, then according to your own faith, you're breaking one of the 10 commandments.
Yeah, that's true.
Just had to throw that in there. I know I'm kind of blasphemous tonight, but
yeah, well, no, but it's the truth, and
the truth is when you tell somebody the truth, they don't want to hear it.
Hey, I quote Ted Lohman all the time, and I hope Ted's listening out there in Arizona. Ted, he told me a long, long time ago, we want the truth. We may not like it when we get it, because a lot of times it hurts. Okay, but we want it none the same. I mean, we want it. It's the only way that you can make intelligent decisions and understand if you have the truth. And it doesn't have its agenda. It doesn't have a political agenda. It doesn't have a religious agenda. The truth, it is what it is. And I think that what we're finding out is certainly not real close to what we've been told. At least what I've been told. Let's put it that way. I don't know what everybody else, but at least my upbringing, and that goes for my education in the public schools too. We didn't talk about Samaria. If we did, it was very, very brief. And I don't recall ever any of my classes in middle school, grade school, kindergarten, anywhere talk about the Sumerians and the Anunnaki. I had to find that on my own.
No, absolutely. I can remember sitting for the first Now, the first movie I saw about E.T. was after many books I read, but when I was a teenager, when I went to the theater to see the original theatrical release of Von Daniken's Chariot of the Gods.
Chariot of the Gods, right.
And I can remember going to that movie that day, and it just kicked into overdrive everything I had been looking for in the books I was reading.
Well, yeah, and once again, I think it validates a lot of the questions that Von Daniken asks. Okay, I think are being answered. I think that the truth of the matter is that we've been lied to, but we've also been, I guess, for lack of a better way, been helped along the way in our evolutionary steps, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But this, I think if you look, when you read and start reading what he's done, you can see why real quickly why the Vatican became nervous.
And I think the title, the working title of the book, I mean, it's classic, and it describes just what you said. There is no God in the Bible, the book that makes the Vatican tremble. And if all of this were to be proven fact, the church would still exist. Because,
guaranteed, right.
Because there's a significant number of people that, regardless of the information provided, will not change their paradigm.
What is it, Bruce Lee, you quote all the time, Todd?
Those who do not know they are in darkness will never seek the light.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and one of my favorite is Charlie Chan. Mind like parachute. It has to be open in order to function. Mind like parachute only functions when open. Right. And
and that's what they teach. The religions teach you a closed mind paradigm. This is what you will believe, and anything out of this is wrong, bad, blasphemous, sinful.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Adjective in you want. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
No, and that's therein. I think therein lies the real problem. And we've been told this for so long and demonstrated through. Well, I was making some notes here when you were talking, and I'm going to check with the local schools around here on the curriculum just to see if they teach anything about Samaria and the Anunnaki or any of that.
Want to take bets?
No. Not unless, I know, but I'll give you an update.
You're in the Bible Belt, Bubba.
Oh, I know. That's exactly right. In fact, I tried to just so our listeners know, I've been trying to work on this priest to come on the show to talk about the very things. And to be all fair, and Todd and I've talked about this. If and when he decides to come on, it's not going to be an ambush. He'll know exactly where we stand, and in fact, he may even be listening tonight. As far as I know, I don't know, but I think it's important to bring a person of faith to come and help. Okay, defend, and that's not the right word. I know.
I'll take him on. Since you live there, you could be nice, and you be good cop, I'll be bad cop.
Ooh, he wouldn't stand a chance. Todd and I were very good at that at one time.
Next week, folks. Wow, we're already at the bottom of the hour here. We've got a few minutes to talk about next week. Next week, we are going to have on the author, Brett Oldham. He has written a book, Children of the Greys, and he's talking about his own abduction experiences. I've got a link already up, so you can go to our website and find that and get his book if you want. Ken, I know in your several decades of working UFO cases, you've run across abduction stories, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think most of the listeners are probably very familiar with the Barney and Betty Hill. But there's a number of abduction stories. A very good one had happened to two University of Texas students on their way home during Easter vacation in Texas.
And like coming home from a football game in Wisconsin.
Yeah, you know what? When your dad, when you were talking about your father's experience, Todd, I was thinking and paralleling that, and we've talked about that. That exact account. Yeah, coming back from college for Easter weekend, or coming back from a football game. Yeah. That should be a good show next week. I'm looking forward to that. I'm fascinated with abduction stories because I believe they happen? Absolutely.
But I don't think you believe every abduction story is a true abduction.
Oh gosh,
story.
no, not at all.
One of my favorites is Travis Walton.
I think that's a classic. The four canoeists up in New England or New Hampshire, I can't. It escapes me, but there was four guys up there fishing, camping out, and they were on a river, and that's a legitimate abduction. The two boys down in Mississippi back in the 50s.
Oh yeah, was that Gulfport, Louisiana?
Yeah, Gulfport, Louisiana. Yeah. And the sheriff put him in a room after he told the story because he didn't believe him. He thought they were full of crap as a Christmas turkey. But he put him in a room, and they did not know that there was a hidden microphone in there. And the younger one looked at the older man and said, "I told you we should have kept our mouth shut." He doesn't fucking believe us. That's a quote, unquote, by the way. That's exactly what he said, only in that Cajun twang that I can't duplicate. Yeah.
And I just started reading the book in prep for the show, and it will be a very interesting show. I'm telling you, folks, this guy's got quite the story to tell, and I think it's great that he's going to share it with us on Paradigm Unhinged.
Yeah, that'd be fun. It'll be good. Yeah. Well, hey, and it ties in with the Anunnaki, absconding with female Sumerians. They abducted them. I fully believe that.
Well, the stories of that time and of the stories written in that area during this time period, according to the Sumerians, it was the Anunnaki who taught the women, okay, again, these would be the ones that came down and had sex with them, taught them about makeup and perfumes, and in fact taught man how to distill the process of distillation to make perfumes, and it was that same process that's used to make alcohol. That, according to the old writings, came from the Anunnaki.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, when you stop and think about it.
Yeah, you come down here and a bunch of dirty, unclean, but fairly attractive earth women. Hey, you need to doll yourself up, babe.
Yeah, that's right. Let me get you some of those knee-high boots and halter tops going here.
And do you know why Islam requires its women to wear
go ahead.
It's because so the angels above can't see them and be tempted to come down and have sex with them. No kidding.
Wow, Todd.
Yeah, I
never knew that.
Again, you're not going to be taught that in church,
nope.
Are you?
No, I'm not. Wow.
Well, we're at the bottom of the hour, folks. The show's just blown by. That means we're at the point where we know where you are. We'll start off with Ryan up in Washington, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Cornwall, Canada, New Bern, North Carolina, Bridgeport, Connecticut, New York, Montreal, Canada, Kiselev, Ukraine. That's a new one. Kiselev.
Yeah.
Pasadena, California, Kansas City, Missouri. Here, okay, now, folks in Italy, bear with my thick American tongue. Quartu Santa Elena, Italy.
Right.
Okay. Avon, Connecticut, Kiev, Ukraine, Plymouth, Minnesota, Charleston, West by God, Virginia. Dallas, Texas, Anaheim, California, Fort Worth, Texas, Pell City, Alabama, Phoenix, Arizona, Rome, Italy, the Eternal City, Boulder, Colorado, Gene up in New Jersey, Munster, Indiana, Torino, Italy, Louisville, Kentucky. Okay, here's another one I'm going to brutalize. Mazakia, Lithuania.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I was there last week. Scottsdale, Pennsylvania, the Russian Federation. Here's another one, new one that's I'm going to butcher. Daugavpils, Latvia.
Daugavpils?
I had it. There's a site you can have, and it'll do the phonetic of what it is, and I can't even pronounce it after I hear it. But it's
oh man! Well, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. Riberia, Italy, United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Vancouver, Canada, Ottawa, Canada, Orlando, Florida, Ashburn, Virginia, Sunnyvale, California, San Jose, California, Fiume, Veneto, Italy, Parker, Colorado, Rancho Cucamonga, California. Another name I just love saying.
Yeah, I like to go there sometime just to see what the hell that
really,
looks
like. Group, Netherlands, and Saudi Arabia. Wow, they had to have had a special connection to be able to get to our website, because they're not allowed to go to our website in Saudi Arabia.
I didn't know that. Really?
Oh yeah, Saudi Arabia completely controls the internet, and you got to have a good connection or an American connection. You know, maybe one of the American compounds.
Huh.
Well, folks, thanks for listening, Ken.
Hey, we appreciate you folks tuning in and had some really good interaction with the Ten Commandments and putting the Bible in, or putting Bill Lino's book in every room. Keep an eye on the sky.
I gotta say something. I just saw in chat. We announced Avon, Connecticut. That's one of our listeners in chat who goes by the name of Derhoof.
Derhoof.
We'll see y'all next week. Paradigm Unhinged on the Inception Radio Network.